What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. And today we got another Frank Sinatra reaction. This time, Songs for Swingin' Lovers, brought to us by a friend, longtime patron, supporter of the channel. And the guy's got some good taste. It's like getting me exposed to some other music, which I love. Doug, thank you, Doug. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. I say it every video, but it's true. We could not do it without you. 100 plus hours of time a month on this channel, which is a labor of joy, but the patrons make that possible. All right, I have done one Frank Sinatra album. I did it last month. I'm gonna link it down below. It was a swinging affair, and I super enjoyed that one, and I imagine this one is going to be the same. So a little bit of research on it. There's not a lot of stuff out here on these albums that are older, but I have something on every single song because they're all standard, so it's cool. You can go back and see where they came from. This one's his 10th overall studio album, his 4th on Capitol Records. It's arranged, of course, by Nelson Riddle and released in March of 1956 on LP and January of 1987 on CD. Went to number 2 in the US, but it went to number 1 on the UK albums chart. But that's important because it was the first week ever for the UK album chart. So it spent the first 2 weeks ever of that chart as the number 1 album. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was arranged, as I said, by Nelson Riddle and took a different tack after In the Wee Small Hours in 1955. This time he was recording existing pop standards in a hipper, jazzier fashion, revealing an overall exuberance in the vein of Songs for Young Lovers and Swing Easy. Sinatra aficionados often rank this one or In the Wee Small Hours as the best overall Sinatra album. I mean, there's some different ones in there, but there's really critical acclaim for this, at least for being top 5. In 2000, it was voted number 100 in Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums. All right, if you haven't been with us before, the music will not be in the video, but it's going to be at that Vimeo link below. So click on that and follow along with me. Let's jump into it. The album opener, You Make Me Feel So Young. It's a 1946 popular song composed by Joseph Miro with lyrics written by Matt Gordon. It was introduced in the 1946 musical film Three Little Girls in Blue. It's recorded by Frank, in 56 and frequently performed throughout his career. His version is featured in the classic, which is 20 years old now, which I am getting old, 2003 movie Elf, and is included on the album Songs for Swingin' Lovers, of course, this one, and Sinatra at the Sands. Now, all of these songs are going to be like classic standards, right? And Frank recorded a lot of them multiple times, and most of them appeared in plays, in TV shows at times, like later on, in movies of that time. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Doug. All right, You Make Me Feel So Young. I mean, I've heard this song. I'm going to talk about all this up front, right? I mean, there's 15 songs in there, but I'll talk about this up front. I talked about it in the last video, but I'm not going to assume you watched the last video. You remember it if you did. But the difference, first of all, in songwriting, that Frank didn't write any of these, the songwriting is all, early, 20s, 30s on almost all of these songs, maybe a couple in the 40s, but they're all early. And songwriting then was basically for Broadway plays or movies. So the songwriting was really good. Right. And then you get this dip once the rock era comes in because the songs needed to be 2 minutes. That's what they thought, at least. And so it just becomes a different thing. Think Elvis, right? No shade at Elvis. I really like Elvis, but like, think those types of songs, like they're quick. Buddy Holly, those guys, like that sort of stuff, quick stuff. So you're going to see a higher quality of songwriting than you may think you would see from songs back then if you don't know a lot about the era. And the second thing is, and Frank pulls this off, his charisma and confidence is just different than other guys in this genre, right? Partly because, we all fake the confidence to a certain extent, but Frank had that confidence. I watched a 4-hour doc on him that went over his whole life and everything that went on. And he believed it. You got to kind of believe it to play it. And you feel it in this song, right? Just the way he delivers the lines. They're not all sung. A little of them he's kind of singing in a little bit of it. Just that charisma, man. He just really pulls you in. So that was a fantastic opener. Now we got It Happened in Monterey. It's a 1930 song composed by Mabel Wayne with lyrics by Billy Rose and performed by Paul Whiteman and his orchestra. It was written for the 1930 musical film King of Jazz and was subsequently recorded or covered several times in short succession, including by the Regent Club Orchestra, George Olson, and Ruth Etting. It fell out of popularity until Frank released it on this, and then he also did it the next year on his 57 album, Sinatra 57 in concert. And if you recognize it, but you don't know where you recognize it from, the 1997 movie The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino. I think Keanu Reeves was in that too, but in the final scene, Al Pacino is lip syncing to this song, to Sinatra's version of this. It happened in Monterey. The arrangement on that is absolutely fantastic, right? It's all just so synergistic with Frank. I mean, the song itself, he left the girl in Monterey, like he did it, he screwed up, but then he talks about somebody's heart is broken, but he's afraid it's his, so he's living with that regret of, he kind of went on and did his own thing, but Frank, because of his charisma and because of his confidence, can pull these songs off in a more believable way than a lot of the other crooners, I think. So we have You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me. It's a 1932 song with music by Harry Warren, lyrics by Al Dubin, which became a standard. The lyrics of the song were noted for its references to addiction. It appears in the Warner Brothers musical film 42nd Street, for which Warren and Dubin wrote 3 songs together. The song was inspired by one of the women working at the Warner Brothers studios. Somebody asked her why she was dating a certain man, and she replied that he was getting to be a habit with her. So they took that and they ran with it. You're getting to be a habit with me. I can see this by the songwriting, that this could be controversial in the 30s or even the 50s when Frank brought this out, because inside the song, we got seems to act just like a drug. It's the second line, and there's 3 line verses, right? I'm addicted to your charms, but now I couldn't do without my supply. So, Frank's letting her know that he can't do without her, man. Like, no matter what he tries, he's kind of addicted. I thought the band really, really was spot on this one. Got a little longer run towards the end there, but the sounds, back then, because they were written for films or Broadway plays, you have more of almost sound effects in there, right? Not in a bad way or a corny way. It just kind of works. So you can kind of picture the song better sometimes with those, if that makes sense. Except we have You Brought a New Kind of Love to Me from 1930. It's written, lyrics and music are written by Sammy Fain, Irvin Cahal, and Pierre Norman. The song was introduced in the movie The Big Pond in 1930 by Maurice Chevalier, who also made a successful recording of it the same year. But in 1930, Paul Whiteman and his orchestra, with a vocal by Bing Crosby, also had a hit with it, and so did the High Hatters, because back then there wasn't a huge amount of music to choose from, right? And most of them were written for Broadway plays or the beginning of films here, as we're seeing the beginning of talking films. And so everyone's just like, grab that song. Everybody recorded it, man. Nobody thought anything of it. You Brought a New Kind of Love to Me. The brass really shined on that one. A more reserved vocal delivery, not like in a bad way, right? But just a more reserved delivery from Frank. And, basically he's just saying, you know that I'm the slave and you're the queen, right? And I'll slave away just so I can come home to you. You probably never want to give somebody that kind of power in a relationship. Take it from me. But, that's what we did back then. We sang those things, and it's always believable when Frank is singing it. Now we're up to a song that, my wife has said these words to me so many times in our nearly 30 years together. Too marvelous for words. I mean, maybe not. Maybe she's never said that to me, but it's a far better story if I put it that way, right? It's a popular song written in 1937. Johnny Mercer wrote the lyrics for music composed by Richard Whiting. It was introduced by Winnie Shaw and Ross Alexander in the 1937 Warner Brothers film Ready, Willing, and Able, as well as used for a production number in a musical review on Broadway. It's become a pop and jazz standard. It's been recorded by many artists. So we did film, and we did a different Broadway play with this thing. See, man, they're taking these songs and they're going everywhere with them. Too Marvelous for Words, built greatly, right? Frank at the end, man, was really powering out that Too Marvelous for Words. I mean, you freaking believe that. The brass was in full run there. The percussion was fantastic. And the writing on this, I mean, realize Frank didn't write it, but this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, things are written at a higher level. You're just too marvelous for words. Like glorious, glamorous, that old standby amorous. It's all too wonderful. I'll never find the words that say enough, tell enough. I mean, they just aren't swelling it. Like you're much too much and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary. Like, man, there's just some fantastic songwriting back then. Next up, we have Old Devil Moon. Not much on this song. Popular song composed by Burton Lane with lyrics by Yip Harbour for the 1947 musical Finian's Rainbow. Oh, skipping all the way to 1947. Let's go. That Old Devil Moon, Deep in Her Eyes. A longer song, like for back then, almost a 4-minute song. The band really is just hammering it out. And Frank builds, like in the vocals, he's got that smooth style, but he builds in the vocals, and he almost sings the outro, which makes it even that much more cool as it falls out. So well done. Now we get to another song I've heard once or twice, not Frank's version, but Pennies from Heaven, 1936 American popular song, music by Arthur Johnston, lyrics by Johnny Burke. It's introduced by Bing Crosby with Georgie Stoll and his orchestra in the 1936 film of the same name, which there was a remake of it with Steve Martin. I want to say Bernadette Peters that my mom watched all the time, so I would hear this song in there. Let's see, this topped the charts for 10 weeks in 1936, which is insane. It was inducted in the Grammy Hall of Fame all the way in 2004, the Bing Crosby version. Frank recorded 2 versions of it, this one, and then a second one with Count Basie on the Sinatra Basie, an American musical first in 1962. Pennies from Heaven has that arrangement of a 1930s musical, right? I definitely prefer Frank's version, this one, to the other versions that I've heard just a couple times. He can deliver it. It's not my favorite song just because I have history with the song, but Frank does it so well. Well, there's 15 songs on this album, so this song will be the halfway point. It's also the end of side 1. We got Love Is Here to Stay. It's very important in music history because it was the last musical composition from the great George Gershwin before he died in 1937. After he died, his brother Ira put lyrics to this song as a tribute. So, that makes it a pretty cool song. Love Is Here to Stay. Pretty cool song where, Frank is just telling his girl, basically, the radio and telephone and the movies that we know may just be passing fancies and in time may go. But oh, my dear, our love is here to stay. In time, the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble. The Rock of Gibraltar, we hear that brought up nowadays. They're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. So I just think that's cool, right? It's a cool way to do it. And it's a song that he can absolutely pull off. So that was a really good one. Now we're going to kick off side 2 with the most streamed song on here, 182 million streams on Spotify. You Make Me Feel So Young was up way over 100 million too. This one just barely edged it out. I've Got You Under My Skin. It's a song written by American composer, the great Cole Porter in 1936. It was introduced that year in the Eleanor Powell musical film Born to Dance, in which it was performed by Virginia Bruce. It's actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song that year. It's become a signature song for Frank. He first recorded it in 1946, or first sang it in 1946 on his weekly radio show, as the second part of a medley with Easy to Love. He then recorded it for this album and re-recorded it for the album Sinatra's Sinatra up in 1963, an album of re-recordings of his favorites. So that tells you something, right? A live version also appears on the 66 album Sinatra at the Sands with the great Count Basie and his orchestra. What a performance, man. Almost has the energy of a live performance, right? That was just fantastic. Slow build, and then the orchestra just goes in, and then when Frank comes back, man, he's on par with that orchestra, right? He's bringing it. He realizes, because they came all in, he's got to finish this thing out strong, man. What a fantastic song. There's a reason why it's got 182 million streams. It's pretty amazing. This album came out in 1956. It's not like Spotify was around when this album was hot, so everybody's listening to it. So, Spotify has become big in the last 10 years, or less, really becoming big. So to have that many streams on a song like this really tells you how timeless it is. Next up, we've got I Thought About You. It's a 1939 song composed by Jimmy Van Heusen with lyrics by Johnny Mercer. Lyrics were inspired by Mercer's train trip to Chicago, and the great David Bowie did a version of this all the way up in 2002. Well, we definitely know it's about Mercer's train trip from Chicago because he says, I took a trip on a train and I thought about you. So this song's all about, I did this, but I thought about you. So no matter what this guy was doing, he was thinking about this girl. So it's, a pledge of undying love and devotion. So Frank delivers it well. Just a fun little song, right? It's not standout on the album, but the album's fantastic. But, a good song. Next up, we got We'll Be Together Again. It's a 1945 song. So, man, we're jumping up in time. Popular song composed by Carl T. Fisher with lyrics by Frankie Laine. The Pied Pipers were the first to release the song, as well as Laine. It's since been recorded by such notable artists as Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, Lou Rawls, Tony Bennett, who's recorded a lot of these, and of course, Frank. We'll Be Together Again. They broke up, and it doesn't appear that they're really going to be together again, but he tells her not to do anything crazy, and, we'll be together again. But when you read the lyrics, it doesn't really seem like they're going to be. But he's trying to, I think, make her feel better, make himself feel better. But I'll tell you what was impressive in this is Frank went down in the register, right? He lowered that range, man, and sounded like somebody totally different, not in a bad way, like highly impressive. And, the upright bass was way more prominent in this to match that register, or he did it to match the upright bass, but just a nice smooth tune, right? He just delivered it there in that lower octave, and he didn't have to, he didn't have to make this thing run or bring it up with a lot of energy. It was really impressive. Next up, we have Makin' Whoopee. It's a jazz blues song first popularized by Eddie Cantor in the 1928 musical Whoopee. Gus Kahn wrote the lyrics and Walter Donaldson composed the music for the song, as well as for the entire musical. The title refers to celebrating a marriage. Eventually, making whoopee became a euphemism for intimate sexual relations. I like the way this thing put it. I mean, because you couldn't talk about sex on TV, right? So making whoopee, most famously, I'm going to age myself here, but the Newlywed Game, their host would talk about that on there a lot. The song has been called a dire warning, largely to men, about the trap of marriage. Boy, I'm not going to touch that one. Making whoopee, kind of what I expect. The song's from 1928, right? It's from the musical and kind of the context of what it's about. And I just don't like the song. I don't like the arrange. You know, it's arranged that way with the noise, and it just. Frank did a great job with it, right? He did a great. My problem is not with him, but I just. You know, it's not for me, but Frank did a great job. Next up, we have Swinging Down the Lane. Our oldest song on here is a 1923 song composed by Isham Jones with lyrics by Gus Kahn. So I'm not a mathematician, boys and girls, but that means this song was written 100 years ago. Swinging Down the Lane, good performance. Again, very solid performance. Everybody sounds great. You know, the story of it is he's walking down the lane and he's seeing everybody, all the couples happy, and he doesn't have her anymore. So, good job. Next up, we got another Cole Porter Penn song. This song from 1934 for the musical of the same name. We got Anything Goes, a recording by Paul Whiteman and his orchestra, vocal by Ramona Davies. It was very popular in 1934. And then Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga did a version of this in 2014 that was very popular. Had a video and everything. Anything Goes. Thought that brought the energy up over the last two songs. Not the last two songs were bad. Just a really, really good performance. And the lyricism, right? I mean, the lyricism was fantastic. And I guess relevant at any time. It was written in 1934, as I said, by Cole Porter. So Frank's singing it in 1956. So it's 22 years later, you know, and in the golden, and, you know, now we're listening to it in 2023, if you listen to it when I put this up, or 2024, whenever you're listening to this. But things have definitely changed. Like, starts out with a chorus, which I like. In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. Now, heaven knows anything goes. My goodness, now they would be really shocked now, right? And then good authors, too, who once knew better words, now only use 4-letter words, written prose, anything goes. So I just thought it was a cool song, right? I just thought it was a cool song, man. Super enjoyed that one. We're up to the final track. We got How About You? Popular song composed by Burton Lane with lyrics by Ralph Freed, introduced in the 1941 film Babes on Broadway by Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney. The lyrics of the song are often changed depending on the recording artist. In its original form, it's a humorous romantic duet, though it's rarely recorded that way. Certain lyrics, especially those with topical references, are often changed based on the time of the performance's release. For example, the line, Franklin Roosevelt's looks give me a thrill, which, I mean, it was written in 1941, right? Roosevelt's the president of the United States, was changed to James Durante's looks in this version by Frank. I don't know what you change it to now. How about you? Just a nice closer on this album. You know, he's asking her, I like this and this and this. How about you? So it's just like, do we have something in common here? So good way to finish the album. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. Now there's quite a few, but there's 15 songs on this album. Honorable mentions, You Brought a New Kind of Love to Me, Pennies from Heaven, Love is Here to Stay, I Thought About You, We'll Be Together Again, Anything Goes. The faves are going to be, I mean, so predictable, right? But it's just how it happens. I've Got You Under My Skin, and You Make Me Feel So Young. And now we're going to get to my overall score. And this one's tough, right? It's awesome. Like, it's so well done. Every song is so consistent. Nelson Riddle is fantastic. You know, with the orchestra, just there's too many names in the orchestra. Like nothing's really attributed, you know, totally to each song. But I mean, the orchestra is just fantastic. And Frank is firing on all cylinders. So this is going to be a sky high score. The thing is, I don't try to like compare albums. But I mean, I just did this Sinatra, the other one, A Swingin' Affair. I just filmed it a few weeks ago, so I do have it in my mind. I do know what I gave that album in my head, and I don't track those. I don't keep track of it because otherwise what happens is you start going, well, I gave that album a 9, and this album's not as good as that album, so I'm going to give it this, instead of just in the moment giving it your true score, right? So if that makes sense. But I do know what I gave that album, and I'm going to give this album the same thing because I don't know which one's better, and that's because they're both just top flight. So I'm going to give it an 8.75, which if you watch my reactions, I'm a tough grader. You know, oftentimes it upsets people. I mean, tough grader in that, I mean, almost everything brought to this channel is fantastic because people are picking the best of the best, right? We're not out here. I'm not every week reviewing a brand new album that just got released because that could get ugly for some people, right? But I mean, I'm reviewing usually the cream of the crop, right? That's what I'm reacting to. But yeah, I mean, this album's fantastic, man. Frank is great. Frank was greatness. And, I'm 52 years old. When I was 32 years old, I would have hated this. I think when I was 42 years old, I really wouldn't have appreciated this. With seasoning, now you might be a lot younger and a lot more refined than me, and kudos to you, but I wasn't, right? But a refined me and older me and more mature me, recognizes just the absolute greatness of this and really enjoys it. So thank you to Doug for bringing this one. Go check out A Swingin' Affair. I'm going to link it on the end screen. It's going to pop up in just a minute. Let me know what you think of this album down below. Is it better than A Swingin' Affair? I don't know, man. It's 50-50, right? There's no wrong answer. All right, guys. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time, I will see you.